Okay, well, the next show that we'll talk about, I think 1988, you and Bernie became executive producers on Kate and Allie.
Right, Kate and Allie was created by some woman I never met, but was taken over and run by Bill Persky, who did a great job with it. He wrote a bunch of them and directed a bunch of them and produced them all. And finally, after 4 years or so, I think he got tired of whatever it was. He decided he didn't want to do it anymore and recommended Bernie and me to do the job. Because he had put us on Marlowe's show and now on this. So we had finished Foley Square, and did something else come up in the middle of the... Oh, we did a show called, You Again, after Foley Square, with Jack Klugman and John Stamos. And that show had been on a year or so. We were brought in. We got it picked up, thank goodness, but just for one more season. And that went off. And then we went, the company that produced that owned that, also was involved with Kate and Allie. And Billy, of course, was the boss of the whole works, and he recommended us, and of course we got the job. So we went in, and the job there was to get it through a last year. And they had made big mistakes, the network. They had decided for some reason to change the location of the show from that apartment where the two women lived and worked. They decided to get, and I never remembered which was Kate and which was Allie, Jane Curtin married, and to move into this new apartment with the other one, Susan St. James. So we did that show for a year. It was awful. It was just not, didn't have the flavor of what it should have. It was just not right. But we got it through the year. And that was another year of eating.
We'll talk a little bit about working with Jane Curtin and Susan St. James.
About what?
About working with the main actresses, Jane Curtin.
Oh, we had a problem with, I had a problem with Jane. I don't know what or why or where, but she just didn't like me, very simply. I don't know why. Susan was a good friend. Her husband, Dick Ebersol, had put on a show or two of ours at NBC when he was running NBC. And we were friends, and for some reason just could not get along with Jane. And I honestly, to this minute, don't know why. It was obviously something I did or didn't do, or maybe she missed Billy. I don't know. If she's watching this or ever sees this, maybe she'll pick up the phone and tell me why she hates me. But I really don't know why. She's a terrific actress, terrific character, terrific comedian. There's nothing wrong with her, except she has a poor choice of people she doesn't like.
And then Linda Day, I think, was the principal director your season. Does that sound right? Linda Day?
Linda Day is a wonderful director. She died, unfortunately, young woman. She was a great director. She would add comedy to a scene. You know, Mark Warren is the name of the director I was trying to think of before, who has directed a bunch of Sanfords and a whole bunch of shows we did. But Linda Day was one of the best directors, because I walked in on the set once and she said, "Get out, get out, get out. You'll see it on the air. You'll see it tonight when we tape it." She had come up with a funny idea. And the idea she came up with, there was one scene at a party. The women were having a party. The place was filled with people. And everybody goes home and they find the jacket, and she goes to put it in the closet and opens the door. And there's a guy in the closet just stoned. And he comes out and walks out of the apartment. Well, I died. I mean, she just added that and made that up, which is great. So, yeah, she was terrific. She got along with everybody.
Did you guys hire any writers for the show?
Yeah, well, there were a couple of writers on the show to begin with that stayed. Ann Flett and Chuck, not Flett. They are now writing one of the shows that are on now, even. But they were very good writers. They'd been there before, and they were good writers. And rightfully, they should have been the producers. Then we had scripts written, I guess, again, we were in New York, so there were guys in New York that came in with scripts. And I don't remember offhand who they were. I may have them in the books. I have books of all the shows. But they were good, they were writers, but the show was just predestined. I forget who it was who told me, when an audience gets to like a show, they like the set as well as the people. And this was a writer for Burns and Allen, George Burns and Gracie Allen, way back. You must have been only 30 at the time. But some reason the network changed the set on their show, and George said, "You don't change the set's a character." And he was right. Plus, on top of changing the set, they changed the people. They had one of them married. They were about two women struggling to make. Now one is married to a sports writer. No good.
So then in 1996, you were involved with the sitcom Cosby.
1996.
1996, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bill was going back on the air. You know, he had, of course, the most successful sitcom in history. Properly, rightfully so. And now he's going to go back on with another show. And we were dying to do that because he was so good and so wonderful. And I knew him a long time through civil rights work. And we went up and asked for the job as consultants. And our agent then, Larry Auerbach, had been his agent, and went in and talked to him, and he said, sure. So we got the job working on that pilot. That was a strange situation, because there was a show in England called something.
I think it was One Foot in the Grave. Does that
One
sound
Foot
right?
in the Grave, about an older guy who was a curmudgeon, a real tough kind of a nasty guy, would yell at kids and do everything and get mad at anything you could get mad at. And Bill loved that show, rightfully. It was a great show, and that's what we were going to do. But first I said, why don't you just do what you've been doing a generation later, be Dr. Huxtable or grandfather or whatever. No, that's it, this is it, no other character. So that was great, it could be fun for him. Must have been, the idea was fun. So we did a pilot with a good writer named Day was his last name, D-A-Y. And a couple of other writers came in, we rewrote it, and then we're ready to shoot it. I don't know if we shot it or not, but Bill decided he didn't want to do that character. He wanted to be a nice guy, lived in Queens, with a wife, a daughter, grandson, and that was that. So we happily took that show. We wrote a couple episodes, but mainly we were involved in watching and advising and consenting and doing that. And it was nice for a long time, and then the tragedy happened. There was a show we were supposed to tape that week. We came in on Monday and had learned that Bill's son was killed out here on the freeway, the off-ramp at Mulholland. And he had come in, he hadn't known it yet himself, and got the message and went home right away, and then we all went home. And from that time on, there was a different guy. His son was very special. His son was a special ed kind of guy. He had, when you read backwards,
Dyslexia.
Dyslexia. And he found a way to beat that and was going to start a school and work for kids. He had gone to teachers' colleges. He was a very special kind of a guy. Now he's killed, and he's Bill's only son. He had 4 or 5 or 3 other daughters. And then he was very moved naturally, and it affected the show. He wanted to do shows about people who do things for, I forget what it was exactly, but the show started to go downhill, and everything changed. First of all, the woman who was supposed to be his wife was a good actress, but he wanted Felicia Rashad back, and he got her back, so they fired the other woman. The woman who played his daughter was a gold mine, and I have no idea why he fired her. It was Audra McDonald, who is today the biggest star on Broadway. I think she's got 7 Tonys. And a sweet, wonderful lady. I don't know what it was that he didn't want her. So she left with the grandson. And he hired another girl, another woman, to be his daughter. And then he hired a guy, a good, funny actor, to be her boyfriend or neighbor or something. Could never decide what he should be. On one show he was the neighbor, another show he ran a business, another show he had no idea. It was Bill's whims. But that show ran, I think, 4 years. We only did 2. And that was the last show I did in this small career I've had. Bernie by that time had moved to Connecticut, and we moved to New York, which was the best time we had living in New York. So that was about it. That's about the career.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the craft of writing, what your writing process has been over the years. You talked a little bit about it with Bernie, but when you sit down to write, what do you do? Do you have note cards, or do you outline?
No, an outline. I always write when I teach or mentor, as I do. I tell everybody, you don't write the first page unless you know the last page. You gotta know where it's going. I made one mistake in my life. I had a great idea for a show and wrote it, and came down to the punchline, there was none. So I made one up. It was a Shari Lewis show. And Charlie Huss, well, Hush Puppy, got a letter from his girlfriend that some girl he met, that she's coming down, and she's with the circus. He said, you talk to her, and she's with the circus. So the whole show was about them doing circus stuff. One would do this and one would do that. And now she came down, and we didn't have a punchline. And the last minute before taping was this line. I didn't say circus, I said Syracuse.
Well done.
But otherwise, you gotta know where you're going. So you need an outline. And you get an outline, then you sit down and you work from that. And he, as I say, he would either write the first act and I'd write the second act, or sometimes he'd write the whole show and then we'd switch and play with it. But I would write a show, a sitcom, in 3 days. Because once you have the outline and you know your characters and you know where it's going, then it's easy.
Would you write longhand first?
No. You know who wrote longhand every play?
Who?
Neil Simon.
Wow.
We were all, for some reason, in San Diego. I don't know why. Billy Persky and Shirley and I, and one of Billy's wives. And I remember coming down the stairs to the lobby and sitting down at a table writing on one of those yellow pads with lines on it, legal pads I think they call, was Neil Simon working on his next play. He was in town and he had an idea. That's what he did it all in longhand. Amazing.
So you guys would type right from the beginning?
Everything. Well, Bernie was more modern than I. He knew who Mariah Carey was before I did. That's why I put Buddy Hackett in the show with the Beach Boys. But he got mad at me, Bernie, because I didn't know who Mariah Carey was. But he therefore also was writing on a computer before I did. I was writing on a Royal Portable. And he would write it, as I say, and give it to me. And then one day he came in and dropped a disc on my desk. He said, here, rewrite this. Bernie, Well, get a computer, and I got a computer file.
Do you have any routines? Like, would you like to write in the morning versus the afternoon?
No, the morning, you start the day. It's a day's work like these guys, like everybody does. You get up, you go to work.
Mm-hmm. Are there any TV shows on today that you think are very well written?
Yeah, I think there's probably are a bunch. I don't watch too many of them. I didn't watch my own shows. I never used to watch. Well, but that's because by the time they were on, we'd seen them, we'd rewritten them, we'd gone to editing and all that. But I enjoy more or less the nature shows, sports shows. I do like the Seinfeld reruns, Friends reruns, and Everybody Loves Raymond. It's interesting because Everybody Loves Raymond came on when we came on with the Cosby Show, 98, whenever that was, 96, I think. No, I think it was 90, whatever it was. And it is a good show, very well written, as is. And every once in a while there's a show, but I haven't seen any of these shows people talk about. I'm sorry, I should watch them.
We just have a few summing up questions now. So what do you like about writing?
About what, writing?
Yeah.
It's an expression of what you think and what you feel. You know, I like writing stuff for my kids, my grandchildren, and my family. I write poems, funny kind of stuff. That's fun. And every once in a while I'll write something on public events and send it to a paper or something. They never print it. But writing is an easy way of working. It doesn't hurt. You don't get blisters from it. You don't hurt your back doing it. You know, it's a great career and profession to have. You don't have to carry lights and microphones. It's a nice, easy kind of a way of making it, and you do it at your own pace, especially if you're freelance. You know, doing a show, then you got to be in there at 8:30 in the morning or 9. One of the best jokes I ever heard was from one of the writers. An Irish writer. It's important to say that because that he was Irish. Oh God, I got to think of his name. He's got a talk show on the radio now. Anyway, we were doing You Again, the show with Jack Klugman. There were a whole bunch of writers there, and it was Passover, and the night of the Seder is the first night, and like we all got up and left around 4 o'clock. Doug McIntyre is the name of the writer, and he was the only one sitting in the room. And one of the secretaries says, "Where'd all the guys go?" And he says, "Well, it's that Jewish holiday, Rosh Hashanah." I loved him for that.
Are you and Bernie still in touch?
Oh, very much. Right now we're working on an idea for something, I don't know what. But he's, yeah, we're still in touch. We call each other and email each other. His wife is a wonderful lady. She has a friend down here who's old, and she put him in a home, and she comes down every once in a while to straighten him out legally, talk to his lawyers and all that, and she stays here, so we see Barbara. His son, it's his second marriage. The first marriage had 3 daughters, all successful, all bright, wonderful kids. This marriage, he had Alec, who's now about 30, graduated college, graduated law school, top of his law school class, got a job right away, got married last year, and he and his wife, she is a doctor, they're moving to New Mexico because they like to climb rocks. I said to him, "What do you got a good job, why don't you buy a rock, for God's sake?" But that's what they like to do, and they're going to go rock climbing. This brilliant lawyer and doctor. Mm-hmm. She's going to have a job there. He'll get a job. He's brilliant, good-looking, great kids.
Have you had any mentors throughout your career?
Say again?
Any mentors?
Any mentors? Do I have any mentors?
Yeah, have you had anyone throughout your career?
Well, people that I learned from was, I think, Carl Reiner was about it. Not that they're not good mentors, but I'm not such a good student. But Carl basically laid the rules down for me that I picked up from him for writing. Try to find real stuff to write, to be funny, but it should be based on real.
What would you say is your proudest career achievement?
Career-wise, I think lasting as long as I did, keeping my family in clothing and being a good father in that respect. I'm proud that I accomplished as much as I did so that I could provide for my family. That's basically what I'm all about. Family and a few friends. I don't think I've ever written anything. I did a movie, I wrote a movie which they're going to supposedly make a Broadway musical out of. It was called For Rosanna was the movie. I called it Rosanna's Grave when I wrote it. It's about a woman in Italy who's dying, and their daughter died when the kid was 5, and now she wants to be buried next to the daughter at the church cemetery, but there's not going to be any plot for her. So the husband spends every minute he can keeping people out of that cemetery. He goes to hospitals. When they pull a plug on someone, he puts it back in the wall. And somebody dies, he hides them. Somebody is dying because he's got bad lungs. He sends giving them the money to send them to Arizona from Italy. That's what the movie is about, and they're doing it as a Broadway show, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm proud of that. And I wrote that in 6 weeks.
Wow.
When you get an idea, and you know the beginning, the middle, and the end, then it's easy to write, and especially something like that, which is filled with little, say, you think of funny ways to keep a cemetery open. Then you need a conflict, somebody to keep you from going into that cemetery. So then you got to deal with that.
Have you had any career regrets?
No. No. None that they're just the general, no, not really, no regrets. Because it's enabled me to have what I have and what my family has.
What advice would you give to an aspiring writer?
Stop aspiring and write. To an aspiring writer is write. That's what you really have to do, is just sit down, you get an idea, write it, talk to people who know about it, and learn from mistakes, try to sell it. When the person says no good, ask them why. But if you have a desire and you want to write whatever it is you want to write, you got to just sit down and write it. And if you got another job, you write at night or you write in the daytime. But if you really want to write, then you got to write.
What about advice for an aspiring producer?
It's tough. See, nowadays, the producer, what used to be called a producer, is now called a showrunner. That's what we used to do. We would run the show top to bottom, from the first draft to the editing room. So you learn as much as you can from the steps along your way, and then you just go ahead and do it. It's not that hard to be a producer or a showrunner if you know what you're doing, because mainly if you're the boss, whatever you say goes, which is not always right. Sometimes you're wrong. And if you're smart, you're the person who tells you you're wrong, you listen to.
So then our last question is,
Yeah.
how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. I would like to be remembered as a good father and a good husband. That's it.
Fair enough. Thank you so much for sitting down with us today, Saul.
My pleasure, thank you. And I don't know if Will and Andy are going to shut up ever.
They're so chatty back here. Thanks, Saul.
Thank you. I hope